Hi, I'd like to start off by thanking the DAIS TEDx team for inviting me here. When they invited me here, I thought about the series of decisions that I took in my life as a student athlete. Performance can be improved in many ways. This talk is about how self-reflection can help you impartially evaluate your experiences and therefore improve performance. I'm not asking you to agree with me because these are some strong ideologies, but I truly believe they've positively impacted my life. So just give me a chance. Tangibles, what are they? We use common statistics to measure performance, or as I like to call them, tangibles. Think about the Olympic medal tally, a grade point average, or a class rank. These tangibles are constantly in our head, and we associate them with complex qualities. Qualities found in the people who achieve those tangible goals, like discipline, mental fortitude, perseverance. We've formulated these qualities, and society has published them in books, journals, and motivational speakers will also talk about these qualities. I'm not here to do that. I'm not going to talk about how qualities lead to goal attainment. That's something that's very well known. I'm going to talk about a powerful thinking that's used to develop those qualities. So, we think about these qualities or goal setting in two ways. The tangible goals that we set for them, and the intangible qualities that are associated with them. We know the qualities that we want, but we don't know how to get there, because each quality is a set of unique decisions, a series of unique decisions. And we don't think about that. We tend to focus more on what qualities we need, or what goals that we want, and how we're going to achieve them, but not about how to make better decisions. So a decision could be anything. For example, the decision to not binge watch Netflix, as difficult as it is one that helps develop the quality of discipline or time management or whatever the quality it is that you're trying to get or achieve. And we know it, but we're not able to think about it. Sorry. So, decision making, how do we do it? Decisions are made on good judgment, but good judgment is intangible, so we tend not to think about it, regardless of how important it may be in creating those decisions. So that explains part of the problem. We have tangible goals. We associate those goals with qualities, but we don't know how to get to those qualities because the thinking behind them is intangible. That's where we forget that the experience or the path to our goals is one that's unique based on the decisions that we make. So, because we can't pinpoint the decision set that created qualities in others, we need to understand the decision making that is our own. And that's pretty much what I did during high school. I would just try and do everything the best I could, conditional on the situation at hand, whether that meant studying on an airplane, or training when I'm sore, or going out when my friends weren't. But I didn't understand what was going on. Now I do. What was going on was I was using continuous self-reflection. I'm going to define self-reflection as the unbiased feedback mechanism or an impartial way in which we can evaluate our experiences and therefore make better decisions. So how does reflective thinking help us? Why don't we do it? Well, it's a tricky question. Think about winning and losing. Winning and losing correlates with results. We associate victory with happiness and loss with discontent. But that's not really what's going on, because we could have played really well and lost, or played awfully and won, even though that's a very improbable experience, it's a possibility. And because of that, we focus more on the result, and we're happy regardless of how it is we won, or we're sad regardless of how it is we played when we lost. And that's interesting, because an unbiased feedback mechanism is better than a result, because a result can be biased. But if you think about things in a particular consistent way, they won't be. So let me give you an example. A couple of years ago, I finished a match. I ran into someone who'd come to see me play, and I had won, but I didn't think I played too well. They told me that I played really well, because that's just the social context of the situation. They're obliged to tell me that I played well because they were there and specifically came to watch me. So I didn't take that as very good feedback. Another time, I was actually pretty confused about how to think about a situation. My coach told me I played really well, and when I went back to watch the same match on video, I was shocked. My performance, subject to critical evaluation and unbiased feedback based on the technique and the way I played, was mediocre. And that's really what I'm trying to get at, that because we're so absorbed in the experience itself, we're not able to see it for what it really is. And that's the bedrock of reflective thinking, evaluating your decisions in an unbiased manner. So this is the reflective cycle. Think of it as a science experiment. So let's start with the scientific process. Step one, reflection, that's a hypothesis. Google defines a hypothesis as a supposition or proposed explanation based on limited evidence as a starting point for further evaluation. The initial reflection is a lot of what we're actually doing right now, what we're thinking. So for an athlete, that would be going through real or training the way they think is best or optimal to perform. But what we keep constantly missing is that our experiences can be biased. So this initial hypothesis, even though it seems correct, that's not always the case. And that's what brings us to action, that's stage two. What you actually do within an experience, the methods you use within a match to optimize it. Think of the way you stand when you play a shot. Think of the strategies you used within a match. Something that you do in the moment to optimize your decision-making then. And we think that's correct, because we think we're performing optimally within that action. When in reality, and I reiterate, our experiences can be biased. And that brings me to reflection on action. The idea that we can be swayed by biased experiences, accepting that, and trying to evaluate them in an objective fashion. Think of it as like viewing your experiences on videotape as a third party. So how does reflecting like this help us? Because the intensity of an experience makes us not be able to remember the methods we carried out in the experience, but more associate them with a particular emotion. So if I eat a chocolate, that's going to make me happy. But that in no way implies that the decision to eat that chocolate was a good one. So we really need to start thinking about exactly what our experiences represent. Look at them for what's happening and not how they make us feel. And that's where I come to stage 4, reformed action. But before I think about going into stage 4, let's look at the example of losing a match. If I lose a match, I think I played really well, but I get absorbed in the intensity of losing and forget that I played really well. So what's happened is my performance is better, whether it's in terms of the mini actions I take within an action, going back to things like technique, or whatever it may be. And that's not reality. I won't think about that experience too much because it makes me unhappy. Not because I think my performance has improved, because emotions cloud out our objective judgment. I'm not saying that we don't need emotion, but we should be able to temporarily disassociate from them to evaluate things as they actually are. And that brings me to stage 4, reformed action. Think of reformed action as the need to evaluate your experiment. Think of reformed action as the action in stage 2, but with stronger methods. At this point, we've evaluated our experiment. Our experiment, which was the experience. And like any scientist, we don't try and manipulate the data that is our experience. We critically think about it. So if we're not able to reach reformed actions, what does that really mean? That means we're not asking the right questions. And where do the good questions come from, or the right questions come from? Our ability to objectively evaluate things. So the reflection cycle has concluded, but this is just a starting point for the qualities that we want to create, or the performance that will manifest from those qualities. Our brain needs to be subject to critical assessment to find the answers that we're looking for. And despite this reflection cycle concluding, you consistently think about better and better questions to ask as you go along the process. I started thinking about reflection when my coach mandated it upon me. I was forced to do it. I didn't like it when it was happening, but I understood its value over time. And now I think about it in a way that helps me be intellectually curious. And that's something I value. Let me give you an example. So the decisions that go through an athlete's mind when he's trying to work out, when he's sore or not, one is I'm too sore to work out. I can't move. And the second is that I'm so sore that I'll get injured. While these are important considerations, they're very absolute. So you can think about it in a way that makes you evaluate your experience when you work out, when you're sore. So that one experience can give you insight into the whole process. So the first 10 minutes, you warm up well, your blood starts flowing, and you feel like you can move infinitely better than you perceived because your soreness has slowly started to evaporate. That's interesting to note, not because you should think that, oh, a good warm-up, I should just exercise every time I'm sore. That's not what I'm trying to say. I'm trying to say that you should be able to make links between your perceived ability of soreness, your actual ability to carry out a workout, and that's how you can, while acting differently, make informed decisions. So because you're making these continuously informed decisions, you're getting better and better. You're improving performance. And that's what we're really trying to get at. But before that, I want to take a little bit of an aside to tell you about a question that I asked. In this school's very auditorium, about 4 years ago, I asked Leander Paes, a well-known tennis player, a question. A question that was, would you rather play better and win, or not and lose? And this question is getting at a lot of what we've talked about. The idea that we need to question the intangible processes that create results and not be drowned out by how they make us feel or how we appear them to be. I didn't understand this question 4 years ago. I do now. Reflection is being consistently curious about every action, where an action and reformed action will lead to improved decision-making, which is where we started, to get the qualities we want and therefore achieve the goals we desire. In essence, what I'm really trying to say is that treat every experience like a science experiment, something you would subject to critical and honest inquiry. You need to ask yourself questions that critically test your mental makeup. Like, am I really good enough? Am I doing everything that I'm doing? And if I'm not, why am I not doing that? Why do I feel this particular way? And what does that tell me about how I can improve my life? That's really what I'm trying to take away. That's really what I'm trying to conclude with. The beauty about reflective learning is that it can help you achieve tangible goals without needing to constantly fixate on them. And I think that's an idea worth spreading. Thank you.